Hello, I'm Betty Swan, and welcome to our show, Wisdom in the Night, where you get help for the tough decisions in your life. Tonight I have a great guest. She is a really good friend of mine. I have mentored her for the last year and a half. Welcome, Kirsten Ferguson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're so precious to me. You're a very, very wonderful, kind, tender-hearted woman, and it's going to be a great time tonight. Just letting people get to know you.
Thank you.
You know, you're married to a pro football player, ex-pro football player now.
Yes, yes.
And yet you have your own life. You have your own call from God.
Yes.
You've got your own story going. And I think there'll be women watching tonight that maybe their husbands have big jobs, important jobs, and yet they're saying, what do I do?
Right.
Where do I count? Where's my identity?
Right.
So give me a little bit of your background, where you grew up, about your family, that kind of thing.
Sure. I grew up in Danbury, Connecticut, kind of small town. I grew up in a single-parent home with my mother. She's a very strong, independent woman, and that's the girl she raised, too.
Yeah, I see that in you.
Yeah, definitely. And so it was always me and her. And, you know, I moved out to the city to go to college when I was 19. And I've been here ever since. I lived in the city for 10 years and got married.
Oh, in Manhattan? You lived in Manhattan?
I lived in Manhattan, yes.
And where were you working?
At first, I was in college. I went to the FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology.
I didn't know that.
Yep. I studied fashion for 2 years, and then I switched to advertising and marketing communications.
At FIT?
At FIT. And then I graduated, and I started working for the National Football League.
Now, how in the world would you go from FIT to the National Football League? How in the world did that happen?
By God's given desires. But, you know, really advertising and marketing, once you learn the basics of it, you can kind of market and advertise anything. And I interned in the fashion industry, and it just wasn't for me. And I always had a love for sports. I played basketball up through my high school days, and I've always had a love for football too.
Did you know a lot about football to work for the NFL?
I did. You know, it's funny, even though it was me and my mom in the house, we always watched football on Sunday.
So you were an only child?
Only child.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, now, when you went to the NFL, did you say, you know what, fashion just isn't it? I tried it. I thought I might like it, but here is something that I've had a love and an interest in, and yet I can take this degree I got in advertising, and I can segue into something I like, just I just like it on my own.
It was interesting. I always knew I wanted to be in sports or do something in sports.
Because of being a basketball player?
Yeah, and I was kind of like, when I moved to the city, it was either fashion or sports, and then, you know, something to do with PR. So I interned a lot while I was in college.
Where all did you intern?
So I interned at VH1 in their communications department. I interned at a PR firm called the Burrito Agency, which is a small boutique PR firm in Manhattan, and they represented some sports clients at the time. So I knew I wanted to be in that world. But when I graduated, I interviewed at the NFL for a temp assistant position.
Really? And that's how you got there?
That's how I got there. And I wanted to be in public relations. And they were like, well, we don't have anything in public relations, but we have it in this group called sponsorship. Betty, I didn't even know what sponsorship was.
I don't know what it is.
I had to Google it.
How funny. Thank God for Google.
Right. I was like, I'll take it. You know, so I interviewed for it. I met the 3 directors that I'd be working for, and they took a shot on me. You know, there's so many graduates that work in the NFL that have been to graduate from Brown or Princeton, Harvard, and there's this little intern from the Fashion Institute of Technology. But they took a shot on me, and you know, I'm grateful for it, and because I loved it. I loved it from the day I started.
And so what as you were doing that, did you stay there a long time?
I worked for the NFL for 7 years, and I just kind of worked my way up in the actual sponsorship department.
And you weren't married or anything? You were just single?
I was single when I started working at the NFL, and I met my husband about 6 months into the job.
Uh-oh, how'd that happen?
Yeah, we kept it a secret for a while because, it just didn't want to mix the two initially. And then one night we were at a party and a cameraman took a photo of us, and it ended up being in ESPN, the magazine. And my boss saw it and was like, "Are you keeping secrets?" I was like, "Oh, I'm going to get fired. I don't know what's going to happen." But it all worked out, and I married the guy at the end of the day.
Yeah, so how long
okay.
have you been married?
We've been married for 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, in a way, you're a little bit like newlyweds because I've been married 50.
I know. Well, you guys are the inspiration because we have some ways to go.
Yeah, and it's worth it.
Yes, absolutely.
Every bit of it's worth it. So as you were going through your life, when did you get a walk with the Lord, and how did you get it?
I feel like I was always on a journey, and I was kind of searching. I grew up Roman Catholic and going to church with my mom on Sundays, and it just became repetitious and kind of the thing that we did. But I didn't really understand why we were doing it. It was a lot of up, down, this, that, and it was just...
A lot of formal.
A lot of very formal. The singing was very formal. It wasn't very relational to me. So I just kind of did it because that's what my mom wanted me to do.
Sure.
And then we moved I moved to the city, and I was young, living in Manhattan, having the time of my life, but I always felt like something was missing. There was something in my
before
gut.
you talk about that, let me ask you something, because we're going to be talking about you and what a good mother you are. Do you, the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he won't depart from it. So can you look back and see that you had a mother that had you in church every week, and even though you weren't getting that much out of it, it still put a foundation in you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because even when I wasn't ingrained in a church, say when I was in college or after that, I felt like there was still something missing. I felt like, man, I should be doing something. Or I would see friends go to church, and I'm like, man, that's nice. Or, I wonder what that experience would be like. Or I'd go to church with someone and I'd hear singing or people standing with their hands up and shouting, and I'm like, what is going on? So
different.
So
right?
different from the way that I was raised.
But did you like it?
Initially, I was a little taken back.
That's the way I was.
Because I didn't understand what was happening.
I thought they were crazy.
I thought they were putting on a show, or it didn't seem real to me.
But what convinced you it was real?
I was dating my husband at the time, and we would go to church on Sundays, which I thought was so great. And I started to feel something different. I started to pray different.
Now,
I always prayed.
What do you mean by that?
We never prayed out loud in my family ever. And his family, they would pray out loud. They would pray when they got in the car. They would pray before dinner and say grace. And it's just never something I did. And I was just like, what is this like that they're doing? And now it's second nature to me. But I feel like I started to just build this relationship with the Lord in my heart, and I just felt things were changing.
All right, now if somebody's watching you right now, and they're where you are saying there's got to be something more, I just feel unfulfilled, what would you tell somebody about how to go from where they are right now to where you are and they want to be there? What would you tell them to do?
I would say, go with it. Go to a church, talk to someone that is, a Christian or anybody that that you want to be like, and ask the questions.
Did you do that? Did you ask questions?
I did ask the questions, and I think even just being in the church with my husband, Shaw, and hearing the pastor talk about Jesus and how you can have a relationship with him and how much he loves you. And I mean, there were days where I would just listen to the worship and just cry, just because it was so beautiful to know that, you know, the Lord loves me like that, you know, and I can have a relationship and I can go to him and pray about the things that are hurting me or the things that are challenging in my life and see, and after I pray, see a difference. I think that was one of the things that kind of started to change me a little, is I started praying differently and seeing my prayers become answered, or, you know, just
now,
seeing
by praying
doors
differently,
open.
do you mean like specifically?
Praying
Instead
specifically,
of generally?
yes. You know, growing up, we prayed, you know, the Our Father, or, you know, but to get down on my knees before bed and pray and read the Bible. I mean, we had a Bible, but have I ever sat there and read it? No. And now, you know, every night I read with my husband, and at least we try to, if we get the babies down.
How do you know where to read? How do you know what to read at night when you're doing that?
You know, we read all different types of things. I've taken some mentorship from you and reading the Proverbs, and or, you know, different books that we're reading based on different things that we're going through. Or if we hear a different scripture in church that we're like, man, that would sound interesting, let's read, or we'll do different devotionals. But we have a couple. Some are specific to marriage. Those helped me and my husband a lot, or even just ones about raising children, or just women's devotionals too. So those.
Well, I know there has been one particular challenge you've gone through in this walk with the Lord and in achieving your purpose. Before we go into that, do you have any idea what God's purpose is for you?
Betty, I think I ask you that
on the phone.
On the phone every week. I'm like, I don't know what my purpose is. But I think and I believe that God puts you in there's different times in your life for different things. So when I was in the NFL, I felt like that was my purpose and my calling, was to be the best that I could be in that position. And then I became a wife and
concentrated on being that.
Being on that. And then, you know, children had always been a desire of mine. And I wanted to be a mother really bad. And I had worked at the NFL for 7 years, and me and my husband were kind of at a point where I was like, okay, I think, you know, we're ready to start having children. And, you know, because of his career, he was traveling a lot. I was traveling a lot. It became pretty difficult. So, and I think the desires in my heart are starting to change. I wanted to challenge myself in different ways. So I stopped working at the NFL, and we wanted to focus on having children.
And what happened?
It didn't work out as I planned. You know, we had a few hiccups. You know, I had 2 miscarriages and a surgery on my uterus. So it took us, you know, 2 years was the process for us.
And it can be very discouraging, can it?
Extremely discouraging. Especially from so many different angles. You know, you're dealing with emotionally. Your husband's handling it a different way. And then, you know, everybody grieves differently after a miscarriage.
Do you think a man doesn't grieve as much as a woman necessarily because you don't even show you're pregnant, but you know you are? You can feel it in your body. You can feel your body changing. Yeah. Because I've had 4 miscarriages, and they just devastated me.
Yes.
But I don't know if Bill felt what I felt. Maybe he did, but I always felt like the guy doesn't realize nothing's happening in his body, but it is happening in yours, and you know you're carrying something, and you want it to be born.
Right. I think he mourns it, but in a different way.
Okay.
And I think he also was hurting because I was hurting so much.
Now, I could see my husband would feel that way.
He didn't want to see me the way I was taking it. I was taking it very hard, especially after my second one. Just because I didn't know if it was ever going to happen for us. And, you know, we had gone through so much with the first one. With the second one, we had finally saw a heartbeat. The first one we didn't. And so, we finally thought, okay, this is really going to happen. Me and him were on a good page, and we went back to the doctor, and there was nothing there.
Oh my
and
gosh.
it was unbelievable. Especially just because you're surrounded by so many women that it's happening to.
Yeah, and how it's surrounded by ones that don't want to get pregnant, and they just pop them out like popcorn.
Yes.
You
And
think,
at
"What's
the
wrong
time, I
with
was
me?"
volunteering at a homeless shelter for underprivileged young girls, and they were having babies, and it was heart-wrenching, and I really was starting to struggle with my relationship with the Lord, because this was something I was praying daily for, and I was getting pregnant, and it seemed like, yeah, sure, here you go. Nope, just kidding, and so
Yeah.
I couldn't
How'd you work through
understand
that?
that.
I mean, the very thing of, did you give me the baby and then you took the baby? Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what it felt like to me.
And but do you know that now? Is that what it was?
No, I don't think that was it at all. I don't feel like we serve a God that is
That would do
hurtful.
that.
That would even do
Right.
that to you.
Yeah, I don't
think now that I can look back, I think we went through that time in our lives for a reason, and I think He drew me closer to Him, because He was kind of all I had. The doctors couldn't give me answers. My husband couldn't give me an answer. Only I could go to Him, and I just had to wait and be patient.
Kirsten, have you ever thought about this? Life really does begin at conception.
Oh, absolutely.
And that means even though your children did not make it to this world, they're waiting for you in heaven.
Yes.
Do you believe that?
Absolutely, and I can not wait for the day to see them.
I feel the same way. I always wanted to have a lot of children, and I have 2, but I have 4 waiting for me, is how I look at it. So I have 6 children.
Yes.
2 don't live with me. Well, actually, mine are grown and have their own homes, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so you have 2 children on earth,
Yes.
and 2 children in heaven.
Yes.
And they're going to be so excited to see you.
Yes. Can't wait for the day.
Have you ever read about the little boy that just went to heaven? I think that he has a book out, Burpo, I think is the name. And when he got there, he met a girl, and he said, she said, I'm your sister.
Yes, I
and
did.
he came back and told his mommy,
Yeah.
Mommy, I met my sister. And she said, what?
Right.
And of course, they'd never told this little
Right.
4-year-old,
Right.
I had a baby, and
Right.
and the baby didn't make it.
Right.
She didn't even give birth to the
Right.
child. I mean, it was a
Right.
miscarriage.
Right.
And I think that for people watching, it's really important to understand the minute it's conceived,
Yes.
it's real.
It's very real.
Uh-huh.
Very real, and we'll see that baby again in heaven, and I can't wait to love on that baby and know. But I do feel like I went through it for a reason and a purpose, and I feel like my relationship with the Lord is so much stronger after going through that. But then also, I feel like He brought me through it to help others. I think.
Well, that could be part of your purpose.
Yeah.
And what would you do with it? Just run into people that are struggling, or do you want to try to have a group of them?
It's interesting because God brings different people into my life that are struggling or have struggled.
That come across your
that
path.
just cross my path.
Really?
Or I've just been very vocal about what I've been through, because when I went through it, I didn't know anybody that had, or maybe a couple people, but it wasn't really something that was spoken about.
Even with them, they didn't really share.
Right. And now, I've just been more vocal about it to support other women that may be going through the same thing, because I felt very alone. As much as your husband wants to help you, as much as your family wants to help you, they hadn't been through it. They don't know what that feeling is.
I had a woman say to me the hardest time of the year for her was Mother's Day.
Awful. And the hardest time for me was Mother's Day in church.
Every Sunday?
No, Mother's Day in church.
Oh, I bet.
So
When
where
the
they
mother-
make
if
the
you're a
mom
mother,
stand up with the
and you
rose,
couldn't.
and then they play the kids on the screen.
Oh, my
I mean,
gosh.
it was gut-wrenching hard. And still to this day, I get teary-eyed thinking about those experiences, because I feel And I know that there's a woman in that audience that is feeling that exact same feeling I felt.
I bet you pray for her, even if you don't know her.
Absolutely.
I bet in that service, I bet you start praying for whoever is feeling what
Absolutely.
I felt, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, my friend said her other hard time was 4th of July, family reunions, because everybody came and the new babies were there, and year after year after year. And then, the Lord did a real wonderful miracle for my friend. He just spoke to her and said, "You're going to have a child this next year." She's got 3.
Wow.
So God can do miracles.
He absolutely can. He absolutely can. And he can bring people into your life that will speak that to you. I know I was in church and I was just having a really rough time after our second, and I was crying, and a woman came up to me who I had never met, and she said, "God says it will happen." And I was like, what? Like, out of nowhere.
I mean, did she know what she was
She
referring
had
to?
no idea. And
She
I
didn't know
just-
about the infertility
she
or
had
the
no
miscarriages?
Idea. She had no idea.
She just said the
She
sentence?
just said that God spoke to her in the service, and I was sitting right in front of her, and I was crying during worship and stuff, and she just said to me that, and I was like, what?
Say it again. God said what?
God said it's going to happen, or in and around that, but and I was just, and I just
I bet you were
wept.
stunned. I bet you were.
I cried, and I felt encouraged, and it did happen, but it was in that moment where I needed to hear it, like, and be like, okay,
To hang on.
okay, yeah, because I'd never heard from him, like that, and
So for the
that, it was
women that are struggling with infertility watching you tonight, what would you say to them?
I would say to them, just wait on the Lord, and know that He has a plan, and know that even in the darkest times, or through all the hurt and through all the surgeries or the ultrasounds with the no heartbeats, just know that God is still there, and He's weeping right along with you, and that, this is all going to happen for a reason and a purpose. And you don't know what that purpose is right now, but He's going to use you for His glory, ultimately.
I can tell you one that happened to me, Kirsten. I wanted to be pregnant after my son so much, and then lost it. And I don't know if you can understand this, but it was a point in my life where I was really seeking more, like what you were talking about, seeking more with God, but not sure about it, and actually a little bit standoffish and a little bit cynical, and like what you're saying, this is so strange. I'm not used to these kind of services, and I can remember being in the hospital, having to have a D&C, and just saying to the Lord, I can't fight you anymore.
Yeah.
I have nothing in me that can fight you. And after that is when I totally turned my life over to the Lord. In fact, it was 46 years ago tomorrow that all of that happened. And one time I was asking God, why did that happen? Because I believe you can ask God why. He may not give you the answer,
Right.
but for sure you're not going to get the answer if you don't ask.
Right.
So I said, why did that child not make it? And I think I heard God say, greater love has no man than this, that He would lay down His life for a friend. And I felt like, and I won't know till I get to heaven, but I felt like that child was willing, somehow, some way, it's all spiritual and you don't know, but that is what turned me toward the Lord, where I quit fighting. And I just said, okay, I'm all yours. I don't know how to do this. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you say. I don't know the Bible very well.
Right.
I don't even really know how to pray very well. But, okay,
Right.
I give up.
Right.
Yeah, and so I think when we get to heaven, we're going to find out there was a purpose for each situation.
Absolutely.
Because their lives mattered.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I wanted to talk just a second about mentoring. Because Pastor Adam Burt is the chaplain for the Jets, and he asked me if I would be willing to go out to Jersey and speak to the Jets' wives. And of course, I love to mentor women.
Right.
That is my passion. Actually, men and women. I mentor both, always have. But I went out there, and the minute you and I met, we just clicked, didn't we?
Instantly.
It was
I was
just
like,
fun.
I love that lady.
Oh, no, I know. And I just felt like I can be myself. I
Yes.
can tell my real stories. And we just laugh.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, and then, of course, Brickashaw decided at the end of the season that this is it.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to you and saying, do you want to continue the mentoring? And you said, I really do. And so we've been meeting almost every week for
Yes.
months and months and months.
Yes.
What would you say has helped you the most just from our times together?
I mean, I feel like I'm learning so much. I think you've all the questions that I ask, you always give a thorough answer, but you know, learning to really get into the Word. When I was feeling like I was, you know, far from the Lord, kind of giving your experiences and helping me to understand how I can get back on track. I think, you know, I call you when something's going wrong and you just say, let's pray right now. And I'm like, okay. You know, so I think it's just so important to have someone like you in their lives. And I'm so grateful for it, where I just know that at the drop of a dime, I can call you and ask for
And say
prayer.
anything, and I don't tell
And,
it.
yeah.
I think that's really important in mentoring someone, because you're going to mentor women too. Whatever God sends me to do to people, they end up doing it. And so you'll end up mentoring people. And I believe it's very important to be real,
Yes.
transparent, and keep the secrets.
Yes.
But I also believe it's important to turn them back to the Word all the time, where you train the person
Right.
how to go to God, because most people don't know where you look in the Bible.
Right.
Where's a verse for this? Where's a
Right.
verse for that?
Right.
So I want to talk to all of you a second. You have seen a beautiful young woman, full of life, doing great things with her life, and yet, have you noticed she had heartache too? So you've had heartache. I've had heartache. It comes to this world. And Jesus wants to help you. You heard her say that. I turned to the Lord, and He understood when nobody else did. And I want you to understand, God loves you so much. Turn your heart to Him. Pour your heart out to Him as if you were talking to your best friend. And I want to thank you so much for tuning in tonight. It wasn't an accident that you turned on the TV tonight. I hope you received some great wisdom and that you have a really good rest of the night, whether you're going to sleep or going to work. I'll see you next time. Bye.